समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या? समझ में नहीं आया।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
अब समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi said famously, and he repeated this again today in Cyprus at Larnaca, that this is not the era of war. The fact, however, is this is the era of war. Whether you like it or not, there are wars breaking out everywhere. And many countries, far too many countries are preparing for war. Even those who are not caught in a war, right now look at this destabilized situation and they've seen how easily wars can break out, so they are preparing. Among all of these, a country like India, which has just seen a mini war, that cannot be complacent at all. So this is just 6 weeks, just over 6 weeks after Operation Sindoor, and see what changes it has made in India. It has made changes to policy, to mindsets, to politics, and you know what? This has also given rise. This has finally sparked. This has fired the first engine of the rocket called military-industrial complex. So there is a military-industrial complex coming up in India as well. Now that term, by the way, was first used by Dwight Eisenhower, and that was in his farewell speech on 17 January 1960. And he had used that expression in his farewell speech on January 17, 1961. And he had used that with some concern. He had said that American military has now become so powerful that there is a close relationship between the military and the military industry. So that's why the military industrial complex, so one can influence the other. Industry can influence, the military industry can influence the policymakers and military leaders, maybe into launching wars that are not needed, or military leaders can also similarly bring riches to the military industry. And that was the military industry complex. He also talked at some point about a military industry congressional complex. That means the parliamentary system as well. That is where this phenomenon found a name. That name, however, endures. Now, Eisenhower may have been complaining because in America it had gone too far, because there was the history of the Second World War. There was a paper written in Foreign Affairs also in 1945 expressing concern about the same issue because the Second World War had just ended. He was seeing a situation where this had gone too far. Look at a country like India, which is at any given point of time either the second or the third or the highest importer of weapon systems in the entire world. A poor country like India, a poor country which does not even have such a humongous defense budget. Why does it end up importing so much? That's because it makes too little. Why does it make too little? Because whatever India makes, it's been left all this while to the public sector, and not just all to the public sector. A lot of it was left to Ordnance Factories Board, which were not even public sector companies with balance sheets. They were just departments of the government. So there was no profit and loss. They were just given funds by the government to make stuff they were making. Now we've seen some reforms. I keep complaining that we are not spending enough on defense, and I will keep complaining because India must spend more on defense, because the best way to avoid a war is to spend more on defense. Keep your military strong. The best war you can fight is the one you don't have to fight. That is by investing in deterrence. That said, many reforms have come about. One reform, of course, is that now Modi government has decided that of all the new orders to be given by the defense forces, 75% should go to domestic industry. Now, this has multiple consequences, and this is also addressed in multiple ways. One is, of course, that more Indian entrepreneurs think that they should set up something in defense manufacture. Second, it creates competition for the defense PSUs. You've seen a very good example lately. May 27, Government of India decided that the AMCA contract now will be open for bidding by anybody. Public sector, that is HAL, right, the big daddy, and the private sector, anybody can come in. Tatas can come in, Ambanis can come in, Adanis can come in, L&T can come in, Mahindras can come in, any company can come in. So this will be an open competition. So one is this opening up to the private sector. The second thing is that government also decided to corporatize the Ordnance Factories Board. So these factories earlier, which used to work as departments of the government, are also corporations now with their own balance sheet. What this also means is that they will also have to compete in this marketplace. Competition is good for everybody. It's in this process that India has seen the rise of a large number of defense companies. Defense companies means companies which draw their turnover primarily or majorly from defense manufacture. And you know what? India now also, Nifty now has a defense index. There is an India Defence Index on Nifty of 18 shares. And would you believe it if I told you what is the current market cap of this index? This index of 18 companies, the current market cap as of today is 11,68,237 crores. That is 11.68 trillion rupees. That is $136 billion. Now I know market cap is not the same as any country's budget or spending. That is very different. What I'm looking at is value creation. So just for comparison, and again, don't think that this is worth twice as much as Pakistan's defense budget, but just for comparisons for us to understand figures. This value is more than twice as much as Pakistan's enhanced budget for this year. They enhanced their budget by 20%. This is more than twice as much as that. So I'm just telling you of the value that's been created in the Indian market by Government of India. One, spending on defense. So it's not as if they are spending nothing. They are spending. They are keeping it at a low level as a percentage of GDP. That is 1.9%. But Indian GDP is going up. That itself translates into fair bit of money. So these companies are getting orders. Second, that 75% reservation for domestic purchase. I don't like the word indigenous. A long time back, Steve Cohen asked us, why do you Indian like to say indigenous? Why don't you say Indian? That's because you, in your twisted mind, somehow think that the word indigenous has come from Indian. It hasn't, right? But if you see a lot of our debate, you will find people using indigenous and Indian sort of synonymously with each other. No, but Indian. So 75% of this money has to be spent here. That means a lot of defense companies are coming up. Now, if we look at these 18 companies, in addition, there are also the big conglomerates, the Tatas, the Adanis, L&T, there is a Mahindra Defense. All of these conglomerates also are now setting up their defense divisions because they see an opportunity there. So we'll talk about them. But in those companies, in the conglomerates, their defense divisions are still part of a much larger whole. We are looking right now at companies, we are looking first at companies which are predominantly defense manufacturing companies. And many of these companies, I'm sure if I mention the names, you will say, what are you talking about? Cyient DLM, Astra Microwave Products Limited, Paras Defense and Space Technology Limited, Unimec Aerospace Manufacturing Limited, Solar Industries, MTAR Technologies Limited, Data Patterns Limited, Dynamatic Technologies Limited, Zen Technologies Limited, DCX Systems, right, Limited. Now, all of these are companies whose names I also may not have heard of until about 2 months back. There are some others. The big players here are public sector companies, the big Maharatnas, and these are HAL. HAL is worth 3,36,775 crores. Remember, critics had said that HAL will die because of the Rafale purchase because they were not allowed to co-produce Rafale in India. HAL's market cap now is nearly $39 billion. BEL, Bharat Electronics, again a Maharatna, PSU Maharatna, which makes a lot of the missiles and things, and I will give you more details as we go along, worth 2,92,000 crores or about 35 billion dollars. A private company, Solar Industries, and I will tell you what it does, 1,53,562 crores. Cochin Shipyards, Garden Reach, these are companies that manufacture for Indian Navy. These are public sector companies that manufacture for the Navy. Cochin Shipyards, nearly 58,000 crores. Garden Reach, more than 35,000 crores. Mazgaon Dock, MDL, the biggest of the shipbuilding companies, PSU shipbuilding companies, exclusively building for the Navy and Coast Guard, 1,27,000 crores. This is a small revolution. You want to see, however, from where has this tadka come? This stuff was always lying there. It's like a bowl of dal is lying there, but you only discover it and you only taste it and you only enjoy it and value it once it gets its tadka. So tadka, you can imagine, tadka came from Sindoor. So if you go to the Indian Defence Nifty Defence Index, 52-week high, which is just these couple of weeks. The index is floating somewhere there, plus minus 200 points, is about 9,000 points. 52-week low, however, was Feb 28, just 3.5 months back. So this jump of nearly 78% has come in just 3.5 months. Call it the Sindoor effect, because a bunch of things have happened. One, people think, the market thinks that government will buy, and also armed forces will need to do a lot of replenishing because they've consumed a lot of the ammunition, a lot of the loitering munitions, drones, artillery rounds, a lot of that has been consumed. So those will have to be replaced, but also Sindoor is not over. Sindoor is still in suspension. Everybody thinks in the policy establishment, and everybody must think like that, because eternal vigilance is the price of national security. That's why the armed forces will now be stocking up. So that's the first presumption. The second is that now government will ease up the spending process. And we saw that in mid-May, when already Ministry of Defence has opened up the 6th round of emergency purchases. In emergency purchases, the respective chiefs can buy hardware up to a certain limit without going through the usual multi-level clearances and procedures. And for this, 40,000 crores have been allocated. Don't think this 40,000 crore has been added to the budget. The budget is the same as it is. What this will do is, this will enable the armed forces to spend more, and we will not end up like we did last year. I can say two things right now. One, it doesn't look like Government of India will increase the defense budget for this year now. Why? Because 5.5 months since the last budget announcement have already gone. So there will be an opportunity in another 6.5 months. And second, for any capital assets that are to be ordered now, suppose the Air Force decides to go in for their MRFA order. That's the big one. All that money will not be paid now. Maybe a small amount of advance will be paid now. Negotiations will go on for a long time. That will be subsumed then in next year's budget. So one, at this point, I don't look at least a substantial increase in defense budget. Second, on the other hand, is the fact that unlike the sad story of last year, the finance minister this year should not hope that she will be helped in balancing her deficit, in balancing her budget or reducing her deficit by the failure of the armed forces to even spend what was allocated to them. Last year, the armed forces returned 16,000 crores, that's almost $2 billion unspent to Ministry of Finance, and that helped balance the budget, because money once given back to the government doesn't come back. It does not go into a suspense account. It's gone, gone, gone. That is not going to happen this year. The armed forces will buy. And the third thing is that going ahead, the market thinks that Modi government will increase defense budget. So what is 1.9% of GDP may go to 2.1 next year, 2.2. My own hope is that over the next 3 years, it goes up to 2.5% in a rising GDP. That will help India buy deterrence So India does not have to face a war-like situation, at least from Pakistan. That, as I said, in a recent national interest, of which I will share links with you with the description, that is India's pass from the two-front situation. Because if the two fronts are China and Pakistan, Chinese are a longer-term issue. With the Pakistanis, you can create a conventional deterrence. And nuclear deterrence exists anyway. I don't think anybody is ever going to use it. Maybe that's wishful thinking, but I hope my wishful thinking is right. Conventional superiority and deterrence is what India needs. So the market believes that defense budgets will go up, and that is reflecting in these stock prices. Now you will have a pretty good idea of what the big companies, particularly the PSUs, are doing. Cochin Shipyard Limited, they made INS Vikrant, India's first aircraft carrier, the Indian aircraft carrier, I'm not saying indigenous. Cochin Shipyard Limited, CSL, is also building 8 anti-submarine warfare shallow water crafts, SWCs for Indian Navy, with multiple vessels already launched under a 6,300 crore contract. So there is money coming in, there are orders coming in. In addition, it built INS Anvesh, which is a missile tracking and instrumentation vessel for DRDO's ballistic missile defense program. You've seen how difficult it is to stop ballistic missiles, particularly when they are fired at you in salvos, as the Iranians are doing at Israel. So even Israel's multi-level system with Arrow, Patriots, THAAD, Iron Dome, all of that is not able to stop all of the ballistic missiles. So that is a big priority going ahead. INS Anvesh will be a missile tracking and instrumentation vessel for DRDO, especially for ballistic missile defense. Then also CSL is doing midlife upgrades on Indian Navy frigates like INS Beas, and has also signed a landmark agreement with the US Navy to support repair operations for American warships in the region. Garden Reach Shipbuilders and Engineers Limited has produced stealth frigates in the P-17A series, anti-submarine corvettes, fast patrol vessels, especially for Coast Guard survey ships, and also Rajshri class inshore patrol boats. They've also exported the first Indian warship, naval ship, CGS Barracuda. Barracuda is a shark, as you know. CGS Barracuda to Mauritius, and a fast patrol vessel to Seychelles. BEML, everybody knows BEML, particularly if you're a cricket enthusiast, you know BEML. And you know why? Because when you watch a match being played at Chinnaswamy Stadium in Bangalore, one of the ends is called BEML end. That BEML is BEML, or what used to be Bharat Earth Movers Limited. BEML produces specialized vehicles and equipment, including T90 tank spares. They should be making full tanks by themselves. They make BMP infantry combat vehicles, 81mm mortars, bridging systems, bulletproof jackets, and also launchers for the Shakti 105 artillery guns. BML is a big PSU powerhouse. So remember, the next time you're watching a match in Chinnaswamy Stadium in Bangalore and the commentator says the bowler is coming in from BEML end, it is this BEML that we are talking about. Then very familiar to us, Mazgaon Dock Shipbuilders Limited. They have delivered all 6 Kalvari class or Scorpion class submarines in partnership with the French. This was Project 17, and they are competing for the follow-on Project 71I to build advanced submarines with air-independent propulsion system. It is also constructing stealth destroyers under Project 15B, the Vizag class, Vishakhapatnam class, and frigates also under Project 17A. Mishra Dhatu Nigam Midhani, as the name indicates, it's an old PSU, a very old PSU. They do alloys, metallic alloys. So primarily a metallic alloy producer. They produce armor grade steel plates for tanks and vehicles, high strength alloys for fighter jet engines, and nickel, iron, cobalt based super alloys for aerospace and nuclear reactors. The company supplies components for missiles, aircraft, and submarines requiring exotic alloys, because right now this is the era of composite materials. Everything is made with either composites, a mix of metals, rare earths, composites. It's all moved way beyond the usual old steel, and that stuff Midhani does, and Midhani has competition from many private companies now in this business as well. Medhani also is not a pure defense company. Medhani, BML, these are not pure defense companies. They also produce a lot of the other stuff as well. BEL, Bharat Electronics, manufactured Akash Tir, which we heard about all the time during Op Sindoor. That's the new generation integrated air defense system for the Indian Army, which also integrates the Akash missile and many other systems there. It made the Swati weapon locating radar, which basically locates the source of fire coming at you. It can be rockets, missiles, artillery, mortar fire. This has also been exported to Armenia. BEL also played a role in modernizing some of our legacy systems. For example, Soviet era air defense guns like Zu-23. I don't know how old you are, but if you're older than about 40, you would remember, and sometimes they even haul them up now on Republic Day, Independence Day. You will find some guns come up on top of our taller buildings in New Delhi. These usually are Zu-23 guns. In the old days, these were to stop any aircraft from coming in. Now, these are also a protection against drones and against drones and other low-flying objects. So Zu-23 guns are still being used. They've been there for a very long time. These have now been modernized along with L-70s. L-70s, I would say, venerable L-70s, Indian Armed Forces' first Bofors gun. That was the Bofors L-70, which was used manually in the 60s. In the 65 war and 71 war, India used them liberally as the primary weapon of air defense. Now these have also been modernized along with Zu-23s with electro-optical fire control systems and modern target acquisition radars and digital interfaces. BEL is also working on Project Kusha, which is a long-range air defense and missile shield competing with or complementing S-400, because now defense has to be both. It has to be as far as possible, so you can maybe acquire the target as soon as it's launched at you, and also at the last moment if the threat is able to break through the entire system, as we are seeing happening in Israel right now, particularly in the Haifa area. And you also know that their order book of helicopters is probably fuller than almost any helicopter maker in the world, because they're making Dhruv advanced light helicopter, the weaponized version of it called Rudra, and then the light combat helicopter, LCH or Prachand. Then there is Bharat Dynamics. Bharat Dynamics forever has been India's missile maker. Usually it's made missiles in collaboration. So India imports a missile, then you get the rights to co-manufacture it. Bharat Dynamics does it, but it's also manufacturing lately Indian developed missiles. So there is Akash, surface-to-air missile, Nag, anti-tank guided missile, Concourse, Akash Mark II and Astra Mark II, which will be the genuine beyond visual range missile to be used primarily by Sukhoi 30 MKIs, but also by the other aircraft, hopefully not just by Rafale, which might not need it because they already have the Meteor, but also by Mirage 2000s and MiG-21. And in addition, they have their licensed manufacturer, Barakat MRSAM, under license from the Israelis. The conglomerates you keep reading about all the time, so I will not talk about them in so much detail, but L&T, Larsen & Toubro is now making artillery guns and also self-propelled howitzers and some other things. They also do very good stuff and very important stuff for the nuclear submarine project. Not nuclear powered, but nuclear armed submarine project. They are critical to that. Kalyani Group, Bharat Forge, again into artillery manufacturing for India and also exporting a great deal, especially to Armenia. That's another defense manufacturer powerhouse which has risen. They also have a partnership with Rafale, Israel's company Rafale. Don't confuse it with Rafale, the aircraft. I know some of our politicians and others too. It's Rafale, RAFAEL. With them, it is manufacturing missile assembly kits for Barakat MRSAM, air and sea versions, and Nag. Many of these companies are also working with each other. For example, Bharat Forge and Tata Advanced Systems, they are collaborating and Mahindra Defence. Mahindras have built light specialist vehicles called Armado, which are lightly armored vehicles for certain situations, also for counter-insurgency, etc. And they've also won a large order from Indian Navy to deliver integrated anti-submarine warfare defense suites. And remember, they have a partnership with Embraer as well, the Brazilian plane maker Embraer. And when the Air Force calls out bids to expand their fleet of Netra AEW aircraft, the platform they'll be using will be Embraer. So 6 more Embraers will be ordered. That's why you should watch the Mahindra space as well. Among the pure private sector index companies, let's look at solar industries, because this has the highest valuation of 1,53,562 crores. Many of these are unicorns, and I will list the unicorns. Solar industries, they are among the world's leading explosives manufacturer. They supply bulk and packaged explosives, detonators, and initiating systems. They make warhead explosives. These are consumables. When you have action, then these will be consumed and you will have to supply more. And now increasingly countries, especially India, but many other countries are stockpiling conventional ammunition, because everybody has seen the problem that not just Ukraine has had, but even the Russians have had. They've had to lean on the Iranians, on the North Koreans to make ammunition for them. So this is a very important company, and that I think reflects they are also a large significant maker of hand grenades. These are multi-mode hand grenades, and they have large export orders for warheads. They are also involved in building capacity for UAVs. Again, keeping ourselves to pure private sector defense unicorns, that there is Astra Microwave Products Limited, based in Hyderabad, worth 10,900 crores. It makes subsystems like radar antennas, power amplifiers for systems such as the Uttam AESA radar, which India is developing its own AESA radar for the next iteration of Tejas fighters in the Tejas series. And they are also in a joint venture with Israel's Rafael to produce software-defined radios, SDRs, and signal intelligence systems for the Indian Armed Forces, worth 10,900 crores. So they must be doing something right. Also a unicorn, in fact, almost a 2x unicorn, unicorn twice over, is Data Patterns Limited, Chennai headquartered, 16,774 crores value as of today. What do? They again do this high-tech stuff. They make products that go inside radar systems, signal processors, fire control units, fire control as in when you fire, not as in putting out fire. Fire control units and other complex electronics for missiles, radars, and aircraft. And an even larger private sector pure defense unicorn is Zen Technologies, based in Hyderabad, worth 17,833 crores. So a unicorn exactly twice over. What do? They also do the same high-tech stuff which goes inside the systems that you see being marched on Republic Day parades. They make defense training and simulating systems, live and virtual combat training simulators, advanced firing ranges and weapon simulators, anti-drone solutions. They are also a leading force in India's counter unmanned aerial systems segment. Its flagship product, in fact, is Zen anti-drone system, ZADS, which the Indian Air Force inducted in 2021. The Army ordered 20 units of 227 crores. The chiefs can only order on a discretionary basis up to 300 crores at one time. So I suspect some of these orders come from there. And that's the reason I sometimes say that our defense purchases work a little bit like daddy giving the kid 10,000 rupees ke beta jao Hamleys mein jo tumhe toy pasand hai le aao. And that's how our chiefs go and buy little bits at one time. If you could do this on a larger scale, you would get a better deal, and you will also bring in stuff in time to shift the center of gravity. Remember that favorite expression of the Pakistani air marshals? He kept on calling everything center of gravity. That is a Clausewitzian concept. He called Rafale center of gravity, then he called S-400 center of gravity. But every element of warfare has a center of gravity. The way to build a center of gravity everywhere is to buy in numbers. It's not to buy in driblets. However, buying in driblets is better than not buying at all, which was the case for a very long time earlier. Zen Technologies also offers simulation systems for L-70 and Zu-238 defense guns. Those are the ones we spoke about just now. In fact, when you see these masked drone attacks and masked loitering munition attacks, then these guns actually become your primary line of defense and primary weapon of defense, because to use an Akash missile, forget using an S-400, even an Akash missile, it will be the waste of a missile in terms of just costs, and costs will be prohibitive because a loitering munition may cost $20,000, whereas an Akash missile might cost you 10 times as much or even more. That's why these cheap systems will always be your mainstay. And that is the reason Zen technology is being valued at such a high level. That said, this is by no means a definitive or a complete list. I told you there are 18 companies, of which about 6 are PSUs. The rest are private companies. If I spoke about each one in detail, it will take too long. So you will see some details on your screen, which my colleague Javeria Rana has put together. So see this on your screen. These companies, besides the PSUs, these companies, where they are located and what they do. What we see, however, to sum up, is that we now see the rise of a genuine Indian military-industrial complex. Do we complain about it? Let's first get a military-industrial complex. Let's build big enough military strength, so strong that we have to stop worrying about at least one of our frontiers. When that happens, when we become militarily so strong and we are producing so much for ourselves and also exporting, maybe then we'll have the luxury of reflecting on the concerns that Eisenhower had raised about a military-industrial complex.